Welcome to Civics in a Year, the podcast that makes civic literacy fast, accessible, and surprisingly engaging. In just 10 minutes an episode, we'll tackle one of 250 essential questions about American democracy, how it works, why it matters, and what it means for you. Whether you're a student, a teacher, or just someone who wants to better understand your country and your rights, you're in the right place. Civics in a Year is powered by the Civic Literacy Curriculum from the Center for American Civics and is produced in partnership with the School of Civic and Economic Thought and Leadership at Arizona State University. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Civics in a Year. Today's episode focuses on one of the most direct and powerful speeches of the Reconstruction era, Frederick Douglass's 1865 address entitled, "What the Black Man Wants." Douglass delivers the speech at the end of the Civil War, at a moment when the United States is being forced to answer a fundamental question: what does freedom actually mean? Is it simply the absence of slavery, or does it require something more? Douglass's answer is clear, specific, and grounded in the principles of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. So for some context, this speech is delivered in April of 1865, just days after the Civil War ends and around the time of Lincoln's assassination. Slavery has been abolished in practice, and the 13th Amendment is in progress, but millions of formerly enslaved people are entering a society that has not yet decided what their rights will be. Key debates at this moment include the following questions. Should Black men have the right to vote? Should they have equal protection under the law? What does citizenship actually mean? And so Douglass steps into this uncertainty and answers these questions directly. So we're going to kind of go through the primary source here. One of the most important lines in this speech is, quote, "What I ask for the Negro is not benevolence, not pity, not sympathy, but simply justice," end quote. Douglass immediately reframes the issue. This is not about charity. This is about rights. Then he makes the central argument, quote, "Slavery is not abolished until the Black man has the ballot," end quote. The Constitution establishes a system where political power comes through representation and voting, and without the vote, freedom is incomplete because individuals have no role in shaping the laws. And then consent of the governed is meaningless if an entire group of people is excluded from participating. This is Douglass's connection kind of to the Declaration. So Frederick Douglass is essentially saying, if Black Americans cannot vote, then the principles of the Declaration are not being applied. Secondly, he's talking about equality before the law. Douglass argues that Black Americans should be treated equally under the law, not differently or separately. He says, if the Negro knows enough to pay taxes to support the government, he knows enough to vote. This statement is a direct challenge to the arguments that Black Americans were unprepared for citizenship. So connecting this then back to the founding ideals, the Declaration asserts equality as a principle, and the Constitution, especially after the Civil War amendments, 13, 14, and 15, begins to operationalize that equality. So Douglass exposes a contradiction. The government already recognizes Black Americans and responsibilities like taxation and labor, but it's denying them their political rights. His next argument really is about natural rights and human equality. Douglass's argument echoes the natural rights philosophy of the Declaration. He insists that rights are not granted based on race, education, or status. They are inherent. Quote, "I know of no rights of race superior to the rights of humanity," end quote. This line directly parallels the line in the Declaration of Independence, "All men are created equal." Douglass is not rejecting the founding documents. He's holding the nation accountable to them. Douglass then also talks about self-protection through citizenship. Douglass emphasizes that voting is not just symbolic, it's necessary for protection. He states, the ballot is necessary to protect him. So without political power, freedmen remain vulnerable to violence. Laws can be passed that undermine their freedom. Their rights can be ignored without consequence. And then we can connect this back to constitutional government. A constitution requires a system where laws and protection depend on political participation. And without access to that system, rights only exist on paper. In this speech, he also rejects gradualism. So some at the time argued that Black Americans should gain rights slowly over time. We actually see this mirrored later in Martin Luther King's letter from a Birmingham jail. So coming back here to Douglass rejects this. And he says, we have had enough of this delay. He argues that justice delayed is justice denied, which is a quote from Letter from a Birmingham Jail. So the Declaration itself is a document of urgency, not a document of gradualism. Douglass is applying the same logic to Reconstruction. Douglass's speech forces the nation to confront a central contradiction. The United States was founded on principles of equality, liberty, and consent, but those principles were never fully applied. Douglass is not calling for new ideals in this speech. He's calling for the nation to live up to its existing ones. So for the Declaration of Independence, equality and natural rights, Constitution, the structure for self-government, and then Douglass in this is demanding inclusion within that system. What the Black man wants is ultimately a simple argument with profound implications. Freedom without rights is incomplete. Citizenship without participation is hollow. Douglass reminds his audience that democracy is not defined by its ideals alone, but by who is included in them. And this message still raises a question worth asking. Who is fully included in American democracy, and who is still fighting to be? Thanks for joining me on today's episode of Civics in a Year. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Civics in a Year. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and share it with someone who cares about a constitutional republic as much as you do. For more episodes, resources, and updates, follow us on social media or visit us at civics.asu.edu. Make sure to check out the show notes for any relevant links. Special thanks to the United States Marine Band for their performance of the Stars and Stripes Forever. Let's keep building a stronger constitutional republic, one episode at a time.